Welcome to the Biometric Update Podcast. I'm your host, Joel McConvey. For many of us of a certain vintage, our first encounter with biometrics was probably on screen, specifically in a detective story. Dusting for prints, pressing fingers into an ink pad, then recording the print on paper. These are familiar tropes from stories that feature forensic police work. And fingerprints are like the older brother of biometric modalities. The first automated fingerprint identification system, or AFIS, was created in 1974 by the FBI. These days, the biometrics industry belongs to faces. Selfie matching, facial age estimation, face liveness detection, all of these depend on the array of sensor and camera technologies that have become cheaper and more common in the last 20 years, and which have brought face biometrics to the forefront of the sector. But as the industry changes and innovates, new options are coming to the table. And they're coming from companies that have established themselves outside the identity space, but are now entering the market as identity becomes more and more integrated with every part of our online lives. Today, you'll meet one of these companies. HarmonEyes is a provider of eye tracking technology. It was founded in 2013 as Right Eye and built its business in the healthcare industry. Its tech has applications for monitoring fatigue in drivers and auto workers. Its foundational AI model, Thea, promises to derive a whole library of data from its inputs. Describe what outputs you want, says the company's website, and Thea Agent delivers it in real time. Today's guest is Adam Gross, the CEO of HarmonEyes. I spoke with Adam about how this technology works, how it fits into the current identity landscape, and about the inevitable privacy concerns that arise with any passive biometric tracking technology. Here's my conversation with Adam Gross of HarmonEyes. So, Adam Gross of HarmonEyes, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You know, we see a lot of facial biometrics in the market. This is something different. And so to begin, can you just give me some background on HarmonEyes and sort of what prompted you to start moving into the identity space?
Yeah. So you can, I guess, kind of first principles, you can think of us as the eye movement people. The biomarker that we look at is eye movement behavior or oculomotor function. So not necessarily, the signature of your retina or your iris. It's how your eyes move. And this has been studied for decades before we even got into it, back in 2012, 2013. And there's a ton of research that correlates how your eyes move for an individual to different aspects of your health, your vision, your performance, your attention, and even your individualism, if you will, your identity. And so what we did back then was started to develop some software products that to improve the world by understanding different aspects of an individual. And so some of the products that we started to develop were mainly around kind of vision and health assessments and performance assessments. And kind of fast forward to this new age of AI and advanced camera-based technology, because the tool that is used to capture eye movements is a technology called eye tracking technology. It's mostly camera-based. We don't make those sensors. We just are the software behind it. But just to go back in time a little bit, even a decade ago, even 5 years ago, those cameras were, in order to extract the signal to determine how your eyes move, the cost was very high and the cameras were very sophisticated. And fast forward to now, the camera on your webcam that you're using, your phone, your tablet, smart glasses, even in your vehicle, these cameras are better, faster, cheaper. And we're able to deliver this or extract this eye tracking signal from billions of devices. This happened almost overnight. So we decided to get out of the kind of testing business, if you will, with a bespoke, expensive medical device and move into the business of understanding the human state and being able to deliver that understanding across billions of devices. And then kind of moving into what you were talking about, we started to, and the topic of this podcast, we started to develop a number of AI and machine learning models around understanding the human state, things like being cognitively overloaded or fatigued, or are you paying attention? And one of the conveniently for us, one of the statistically significant markers that we found in our massive training database is age and identification. And so we see huge opportunities, I'm sure we'll get into it today, in order to deliver, by delivering these kinds of understandings across broad populations to individuals in a very private way.
Yeah. Before we get into that and the TikTok issue, looking at your website, the science seems to be able to tell you a whole lot about a person. It's not just age, range. There's these cognitive states. There's a whole range of information that you're getting. Can you give me a sort of potted version of the science and how this all works?
Yeah, it all starts with the data. I guess I'd go back to when we started the company, when my co-founder, Dr. Melissa Hunthelday, who was an eye tracking researcher back then, when we started the company in 2012, we took the approach that we were going to follow the science, and then we were going to develop these eye tracking based products. And over time, we've published quite a bit in this area across a number of different domains, whether it be traumatic brain injury or age estimation, and a lot in between. And it all starts with the data. And so fortunately for us, our devices have been out in the wild in the world, in clinical offices for optometry, ophthalmology, and also neurology, and across elite performance organizations in sports and military, and in university settings and hospital systems. So as a result of that, we've procured probably the largest validated and labeled eye tracking database in the world. We just surpassed 600 billion data points from 16.5 million unique records. So not only is that device business help improve millions of lives of patients, we've also were able to procure this really valuable database. And to be honest, we didn't know how we were going to use it over the last decade, but we knew it was important to procure this because it was very valuable data. And from that data, we understand demographic, and this is all de-identified, but we understand demographic information, epidemiological information, even clinical conditions from clinical notes, et cetera. And so it's all very well labeled. And as the new age of AI and the technology totally changed, we looked at it, we said, okay, this is our time, right? So we now can take this data and we can leverage AI, and given the right skill sets, we can train models on the data. And if you don't have the data, you got to go out and collect it, which can take years. We already had done that for a decade. And so the science really begins with the data. And now we've taken that data, and then I'd add that one other component. Eye tracking is kind of a difficult signal, and it's very diverse, and it can be fragmented. Meaning your camera is going to be different than my camera. It might have a different, accuracy and precision. And so when you deliver eye tracking based, eye movement based software models, you need to be able to deliver it in a way that's compatible and interoperable, so that you don't have to constantly revalidate the algorithm every single time across every device. So we've solved for the infrastructure part. We've solved for a lot of these components. So when you add the data, the training model, the science around it, being able to tune and retune these models, and then normalize it and deliver it in a compatible way, in a device agnostic way, you can look at us as kind of HarmonEyes as kind of the entire pipeline, right? And but going back to your original question, the science all starts with the data.
Yeah,
and we've got it.
As far as the mechanics of it, Is this a passive thing, or is there a prompt that says, like, move your eyes like this and we'll let you know how old you are?
That's a good question. So all of our models are passive, and they're, first of all, eye tracking, eye movement behavior is objective, difficult to fake, right? Your particular signature, right, for JR that you've got. Your signature is different than my signature. We might be different age, different sex, different experiences. We might be performing a different task. So being able to generalize to you versus me is critically important, understanding individual differences. And those are all part of our algorithms that allow us to generalize across the entire population because of this massive data set. And so eye tracking is objective, right? It is highly sensitive, and it is able to be delivered in a passive way. So the models that we're talking about we kind of can classify eye movements in a way where it's either positional, where we need to know where you're looking, right? Did you look at the stop sign? Did you process it if I'm driving? And if not, maybe you can deliver an intervention to say, look at the stop sign. That's a positional eye movement. We need to know where you are looking. We need to understand the scene in front of you. That's not what we're talking about here for age assurance. What we do is we passively observe your eye movements in the background, and based off of the patterns, based off of how your eyes move. We're getting a little technical here, but things about like saccades, pursuits, and fixations. We can understand very quickly your age range. And so what's nice about it is it's, like you said, it's passive. You don't need to do anything. And it is objective. And it's private. So the way that we deliver these models on any camera-based device, when we collect your eye movements, say for 1 second, they're destroyed the next second. So we're not storing or recording any of your movements. We just capture the signal, right? And then we run that algorithm in real time. And then when we have enough data, could be 2 seconds, could be a few seconds, we're able to put you in a bucket of if it's a threshold, it's under 16 or over 16, or if a customer wants to understand, are you 19 to 24, right? There's different age ranges. We're able to do that. So it is passive and it is private.
What's fascinating about a company like HarmonEyes is that because of how it's already used, it brings a certain level of trust to the table. A track record in a highly regulated industry like healthcare is a kind of de facto certification. Something I've heard from a couple of firms recently is that their tech isn't easy to misuse because they're very selective in how they license it. In effect, they're suggesting that serious companies don't break the law. You got in touch, we were talking about TikTok and what they call their behavioral age inference algorithm. The UK Information Commissioner's Office actually classifies this as profiling, and they don't consider it an adequate form of age assurance to meet the sort of threshold for highly effective age checks. So tell me, if you can, how privacy is sort of at the core of your age assurance offering, and why it's preferable to something that like what TikTok is doing and Facebook and YouTube and all these guys.
Privacy is an individual, right? It's an individual preference. It's an individual. Everyone's got like their own threshold for what goes over the line and what doesn't. But if you look at the big tech companies, I always try to zoom out and say, incentives drive behavior, right? And so we all kind of understand what the incentives are across the board for a lot of the big tech companies. And so when you look at the current methods, like you mentioned, watching behavior, storing that behavior, preferences, you're getting past the requirement, right, for what's needed to understand what age range or threshold that individual is. And so, it's not really my place to comment on their techniques, but we look at it a different way. We look at it as a problem that needs to be solved. And what is the best way to solve the problem? And most people don't want their behavior is being monitored and tracked, even if it's going to deliver an accurate age assurance, you now have a ton of information on me that I didn't necessarily want you to have. I think even if you look at our method that is private, where there's no personal identifiable information, we don't even know who the person is. We're just kind of putting them in a bucket based on their biosignal for eye movement behavior. That still is capturing information on an individual, right? But the value that you get out of that is that very quickly you can decide, do I need to do a secondary verification? Is this enough? Right, where I can shut down access to content that could, adult content or damaging content. So, we just look at this as it's a better mousetrap, right? To be honest, I think privacy is a fungible term these days. It has been for a while. I think we all, maybe years ago were concerned when we were giving up our, geographic location to Google Maps and Waze. And we're like, oh my God, Google's going to know where we are all the time, right? But no one really cares about that today because you can't live without Google Maps or Waze. And so the value that you're getting from that tool is so great that we all are giving up our location all the time, which is I consider very private, but I'm willing to do that because of what I'm getting. And so if you can use advanced technology and passive, objective, and private signals to understand someone without having to give up so much personal information, we think it's a better mousetrap.
Have you had people come to you and say, what if this is deployed without disclosure? What if I find myself, looking at a computer camera, wondering, is this reading my eye movements, and trying to figure out if I'm a 25-year-old male in Kenosha, without
right.
them telling me that,
Right, because if you think about it, right, if age assurance can be used in a positive way for protecting children, but it also could be used to understand what age you are. So if I'm an advertiser, I know what kind of content to put in front of you. So privacy, and kind of going back to your previous question, privacy is so core to what we do that it not only, it doesn't stop at the fact that the way we deliver it is private and we don't record or store any of this information. We can't re-identify you as an individual. We also control who we license this technology to. And we're very, very careful about who and what and why and the use case. And so I would answer your question to say that, we do require that our customers get the valid consents and waivers from their users. And so we'll continue to be a good steward of the tech by controlling who we actually deliver it to and license it to.
That kind of brings it back to trust, which is really the core currency of this whole identity industry. And I wonder, this is a hot market right now. Everyone's talking about age assurance. You're bringing something different to the table. Is that a strength or a challenge in terms of trying to win customer trust in saying, like, we're not this model, we're not the facial scan, selfie biometrics? Does that tend to open things up for people, or are you finding that there's an additional hurdle to get over in being something unique?
So it's an interesting question. So I go back to our kind of obsession and our core value of privacy, and I think when we talk to customers about that usually checks a box pretty early on. And when we dig deeper into the signal, and they understand that we're recording images of people's faces, even though the webcam's being used or the phone cameras being used. We get through some of those technical issues and they realize, okay, it really is private. Then you kind of look at market positioning, right? You're right. We're not at our core, we're not a biometric company that's come in and figured we have a better way to do. We have a different way of doing something that we've been doing for a decade. We're the biosensing company, the biosignal company for eye movements, right? That's our space. And we don't really venture out. We've done some collaborations with other biosignals like EEG and heart rate and things like that, but we focus on what we're really great at. We think we're the best in the world at, which is eye movement. And so I actually would argue that our obsession and focus on eye movement and our expertise on it gives us the credibility, right? We've got the data. We've published a ton in this space in top tier journals, and we've got a list of blue chip customers that we've worked with for many, many years that trust our solutions, our ecosystem, our models. And so we think we've earned that trust, and now we have to go out and deliver it. So it is a challenge being a new entrant into a market just because we're not in an ecosystem. And we'll see how it goes. So far, we're being received pretty well.
What's next? What's next for the company? How do you sort of take what you've established and grow it across these different use cases?
So we spent a lot of time thinking about that, right? And we've spent a lot of time, and one of the challenges in this age of AI is, as you know, the technology and the methodology they're changing almost weekly. So even just for a small company like us, staying on top of the latest AI models and methodology and techniques is a challenge for us. What's next for us is we are very close to launching not only these. So when you look at what we do, we've mentioned some different capabilities like cognitive load and fatigue and age assurance and biometric ID and authentication and things like that. We're not looking to build a model of models. So we're not looking to just keep adding capabilities and then licensing age assurance and then licensing fatigue over to an automobile company, et cetera. What we're looking to do, and this is getting a little bit AI, deep into AI right now, but we're building a foundation model around eye movement. So if you think of what's going on in AI today, you've got your multimodal big, models that are out there and your leaders, right? You've got, of course, your frontier labs that, like Anthropic and OpenAI and Gemini that understand language and they understand text, and we're all used to using those now. And then you've got your multimodal models like voice, right? You've got your leaders in that space like 11 Labs and others where they understand voice and they're able to generate that. And we see the gap in this space in AI is understanding the person behind the question or the task. Mm-hmm. So we understand their voice, we understand their facial patterns, we understand, we understand images and videos and language and text, but we don't understand the human behind it. And so to us, that the missing link in AI is understanding the full context. And without understanding you or me, when we're using AI, we're missing that context. So we're building what we call a foundation model for eye movement. And inside of that foundation model, going to be dozens and eventually hundreds of capabilities. One of the capabilities is going to be age assurance. One of the capabilities is going to be biometric authentication, right? One of the capabilities is going to be identifying in real time, are you stressed, right? Or are you going to be fatigued in 20 seconds? Right. And so we can intervene. So that's the future of our company. And we think when we combine that with the other modalities and the other aspects that we're all going to be living in with AI and the touch points, that we're going to kind of close the loop on truly contextual AI.
Last question before we sign off is it's an arms race, right? AI, we know this. It's for every step it takes in a positive direction, there are people who want to use it for fraud. And I wonder, with deepfake detection and authentication, is this something you're worried about? That someone might eventually be able to fake eye movements to the point where that becomes less reliable?
Yes, we're very worried about it. We worry about these things all day long, right? That's kind of like our jobs. So going back to biometric identification and authentication, again, this wasn't like part of our roadmap 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We identified, we found an inventor, someone who invented a biometric ID and authentication algorithm that's highly accurate with all the IP around it, and we acquired that IP last year. And inside of that IP is the ability to deliver a liveness detection, mm-hmm. and also being able to detect if the model's being spoofed. And so we're able to leverage those two, specifically to your question, those two capabilities across all of our models, including age assurance, right? And so now you think about, how do we combine these models to deliver more value? Yes, I can put a 13-year-old in front of a monitor and they try to go to a gambling site to bet on a football game, and that 13-year-old's going to profile as under 16, and that content's going to be unavailable to them. But if that 13-year-old has their 17-year-old sibling sit in front of the screen, get a pass, and then switch sides and says, "Hey, okay, little brother, now you can go place your bet," we're going to understand if the person that's looking, if they're under the threshold. So that's a little bit of kind of spoofing the system. Mm-hmm. Similarly, if I'm using some sort of dummy or digital human, right, et cetera, I'm also able to understand that, is this person a human or is it not, because of our liveness detection capabilities. Mm-hmm. So when you combine all of those things, it's age assurance, it's identification and authentication, it's persistent, it's passive, it's real time, and it prevents kind of gaming of the system in many ways.
Well, it's very cool. I got to say, it's a really neat technology, and it's very interesting to see all the different applications for it. So, anything else you'd like us to know before we wrap up here today, Adam?
So the age assurance models that we're developing in the biometric authentication, we're expecting to ship these sometime in Q1. Mm-hmm. So we're really excited about it. We're in the thick of it now, and maybe we'll follow up after we ship it early next year. But we're really excited about having a positive impact in such an important area, whether it's protecting children or confirming the accurate authentication for commerce and purchases, and really just across the board, enabling humanity in a better way is really our mission. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
Thanks again to Adam Gross for joining us today, and thanks to you for listening. You can visit HarmonEyes.com to learn more about the company. And as the biometrics world continues to change at a rapid pace, you can always find the latest news and analysis at www.biometricupdate.com.